Hello, hello, my lovely human, and welcome back to Women When Fueled. Today, we are joined by an incredible guest. Jasmine Kazuko Linane Booey is a holistic wellness coach with expertise in yin yoga, somatic energy work, breathwork, and meditation. She's also the owner of Kazuko Wellness and a dedicated teacher at Anam Cara Healing Center, where she guides others in returning to themselves with grace and intention. Jasmine's journey is a powerful story of self-discovery, healing, and reclaiming her truth. Through her work and her own lived experiences, she's become a beacon of strength, encouraging others to honor the full spectrum of their emotions and embrace the life that they're meant to live. Before we dive in, as always, a quick note. Women When Fueled is for entertainment and connection purposes only, and it's not meant to replace professional advice or your lived experience. Episodes may include light conversational cursing, which might not be suitable for all listening environments. This episode in particular comes with a trigger warning, as the concepts of hormonal regulation and the all too common reality of suicidal ideation are brought to light. Please let this information advise your listening experience. In today's episode, Jasmine shares her experience living through life's highs and lows, how she's learned to advocate for her health and wellness, lessons from her journey with PMDD, the transformative power of stepping into your true self, how to shift from healing pain to cultivating joy, and navigating through big transitions with authenticity and self-compassion. This episode is a beautiful blend of raw honesty and inspiring wisdom. I am so honored to share Jasmine's story with you. Let's dive in. So, the topic I kind of had in mind was your transformation of reclaiming your name, of reclaiming your sense of self, of this journey that I've been so honored to witness in you. And we really did start together.
Yeah.
You know, having that I remember walking in to Reiki 1 and seeing you, and you were wearing one of your embody suits, of course, and your nails were always like such fun colors, so I went red
I know, and I'm
to be fun.
I've got naked nails.
And I always have naked nails, and I was like, I'm gonna be fun, I'm gonna do it this week, because I'm seeing Jess, I'm gonna be fun. And there was already such a glow about you even before this next evolution. And I saw it, and I just wanted to know you immediately. And I was like,
gosh.
How is it that I get to sit in this room with this all these beautiful people, but I couldn't stop staring at you?
Oh my gosh.
And literally
I'm getting
was
sweaty.
She is going to catch me staring, and it's going to be one of those things, but
Girl, I was staring back.
I'm just so thankful to know you. And it has been such a wild couple of years for both of us, but I'm so thankful that I've gotten to witness this evolution of yours and gotten to know you through it. And I just would love to start off with overall the last, let's say 3 years, because it has really been an evolution of longer, but
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
the last 3 years, let's say, how do you feel about this rebellion of yours?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you. I've always had a crush on you since the day we met.
Since the day, it was love at first sight.
It was love at first sight. I'm honored to be here. And I love that you use the word rebellion, because that's actually how I describe my work. Once I fell into this work, I was like...
It was what you first said. I remember this is my rebellion.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yeah. And I think, falling into this rebellion is a way of life, in a sense. But I do just think, the slowing down, the being internal and reflective, as a woman of color, allowing myself to be soft, allowing myself to express my anger when it comes, express to be the whole of myself, is my rebellion, because we so often get put in boxes, right? Mm-hmm. And I was actually just talking to my partner about this last night. So I'm multiracial. Yeah. I believe you are as well, right? So on my dad's side, I'm Japanese, native, don't know my tribe, and African American. And then my mom's side is white, Irish, German. And it's always been this thing where it's this idea of like the sum is greater than the parts. I don't know how that saying goes. But yeah, where it's like I get to live on the spectrum. I get to be all of it or none of it or some of it, or like I get to choose, and every day I get to wake up and be whatever I am. And I think in terms of like emotional work, that's huge for women, right? Like I've been the brown woman who gets called aggressive, or I've been the brown woman who gets told that I'm too loud. And then I've also been like the woman who never spoke up for herself or repressed my emotions so much that I didn't actually know what I felt anymore. And so it's like I just get to be. Like, period, Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of our sept, so at the beginning of Reiki was your rebellion. You were like, this is my rebellion. Like, coming to these trainings, doing this work is my way of saying, like, F you to the man, F you to my raising, like, all of these things of just not even F you, but just like, I get to do what I want.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting in our first sept circle, and you're like, this is my return home. And so to be able to hold both this softness of a return and this like viva la revolucion of a rebellion. And so to contrast the rebellion, how has it felt coming home?
First of all, you're such a good listener. Like, oh my gosh, the fact that you remember these things. I know you're always taking notes. I used to like kind of peek over and be like, oh my gosh, Lex is listening. Yeah, I think the coming home piece, like part of the rebellion, the coming home is just recognizing or truly understanding what it means to like, that there's enough space for me. Right? And I know we talk about that a lot, and it's one of those things where it's like you hear it, you know it, but I didn't live it. Like I didn't feel it in my body. I didn't know it. Like people could say, there's enough room for you, like be as big as you want to be, but I didn't always know what that meant, especially whatever it is people are trying to navigate in their lives, right? We're always feeling like there's this funnel that we're being pushed down, whether you're a wife or a girlfriend or a partner, whatever, trying to make things work, or you're a mom and time is against you, or whatever it is, or you're in a job that doesn't flow with your creative flow. It's like we're always being pushed down these funnels. And so just what is it to like break the barriers and like take up all the space you need? And I talk about that a lot in my yoga classes, like yin yoga, where it's like you could just like soften and melt. And I just always imagine this like blob of like
I'm a puddle.
Yes, of just like
puddle person.
What was that stuff we used to play with as kids? Like
the slime.
Yeah, like the slime.
It was in a little plastic jar, and you could go.
Yes, exactly. I always imagine that like once I come into my breath and my body, that like my body like expands in that way, where I'm just like.
Have you played? They make a slime that is like build a snowman, and it's like a slightly more structured slime, if there's such a thing. And you build your little snowman, and it melts throughout the day.
Oh my gosh, that's me.
But what a fun practice.
Right.
Like, you can just melt.
You can just melt. And you can, like, you're still the same amount of thing, right? But you get to be in whatever form you need to be in. So I don't know, this coming home piece, like, I think that's all of it. All of it are still things that I'm, like, actively trying to figure out. I saw a quote the other day that was like, trust the people who claim they're just trying to figure it out, and don't trust the ones who claim that they have figured it out.
Right. Who have arrived,
yeah.
I'm just like,
nah.
I don't trust them. I'm like, you got stuff under a rug somewhere. Yeah. It's hidden behind a door, and you might not even know there's a door.
Yeah, right. And that's like in your work too, you get it, where it's like there are no quick fixes. There are no secrets. There are no, like, there are different levels of support and resource that people have access to or not. But when it comes to just like leaning into yourself, like you just got to do it. Like, and it means like all of it, like feeling the grief, feeling the joy. And I think there's something with that too, where in the wellness world, we can get stuck working on our pain, working on our trauma, working on our sadness, working on our anger. And sometimes we forget to like work on your joy, like extend your laughter, be a little bit louder, love harder. You know what I mean? Like that's a whole nother side of vulnerability that we don't get to. And so this idea of living on the spectrum of like coming home to myself, it's like, I'm still discovering like what else is in there and how can I let it be like flourish even more, I guess.
I love that. And just the concept of, I think so many women who, I really take it for granted that I am surrounded by so many women that are doing inner development all the time.
Yeah.
Who are always exploring a little deeper, who are taking notes on where they've been and where they'd like to go and where they're at now. And there are so many women who are terrified to go for it because they think that because what they're seeing in us now, we must have always been that way. And we must have always really felt liberated. We must have always said no and set boundaries. And it's like, how could I possibly start?
Yeah.
And the fact that it isn't linear, it is very seasonal. And you might uncover mental health things that were so suppressed by the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the funnel that you've been in. And you like start peeling back these layers of the onion and you find a diagnosis, you find other pieces. And I know that if you're comfortable discussing it, your health journey, because I know that your health journey kind of sparked your rebellion, if you will. It's like there's something more here.
Yeah. And I think just like to speak on the point of like people being scared, you do have to be ready for change, right? It's like there is that fear of like once you start questioning or being curious about something, you kind of then have to be open to the answers. And you always have a choice. Like sometimes you discover something new and you decide, okay, I'm gonna keep following this path, or I'm gonna continue to suppress and go back to the way things were. And you have a choice to make of like either I'm going to like expand or I'm gonna stay stagnant. And both come with pain. And I in a lot of my like most recent transformations and changes in my life, I always kind of described it as the pain that I was feeling and going through all these changes, like my separation and all these things, like that pain felt nourishing, right? Versus the pain of ignoring and suppressing, and like they both hurt. Growing hurts, right? Growing pains are real, but so is like stagnancy and just being stuck. Like, so it's like you have to choose your path. So my health journey, that definitely was a spark. And it was kind of like most women who've ever struggled with hormone stuff or really just anything related to the female body. It's like there isn't a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
You gotta go like dark web, deep Reddit threads to be like, what's happening?
This one lady talking about it that doesn't have a good website because she's too busy helping people.
Exactly. It's all just straight like HTML code. But yeah, and I have PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And it was a long road to discovery. And really, my ex-husband is the one who figured it out. And he was so consistent and caring, and he could observe me in ways that I couldn't. You know, I think when we're in our cycle, there's points where things just don't feel clear, right? Or our reality is distorted. And so he was able to observe me in ways I wasn't. And so I'm going to talk about some things, but I want to be really clear, like if this ends up on the podcast, that every woman's body is different. Yeah. Every path that you take to help yourself, to be well, to be in control is your choice and what you do with your doctor. There were things that I did that didn't work for my body. And so my belief is that I had an IUD. So my ex he's French, and so we lived in France and we traveled a lot. And so once our relationship got serious, I knew I was going to be traveling for a while, so I didn't want to deal with like the pill. Right. Like I don't want to have to keep ordering it and waiting for shipping and figure that stuff out. And so I had learned about IUDs, and because also from my ex, because people in Europe know a lot more about women's health than we do in the US.
That's
hands
on
down.
Brand.
Yeah,
for
on brand.
All health problems.
Yeah, all the things. But so I had learned about IUDs. I did some research on which one I wanted. I went in and got the Mirena IUD, and I'm naming it because it's actually banned in some countries.
It literally made me crazy.
Yep. Okay.
I'm not like, just for my body,
Yeah.
for my brain, and
Yep.
my journey, it was not effective for me.
Yeah. So same for me.
Got that sucker pulled out.
Yo. So I had it for like 3 years probably. And in retrospect, I could see when it started problems, but I didn't know.
Right.
Because I stopped having a period completely. So I wasn't bleeding. So I was just like, I thought I was, when things got really bad, and by really bad, I mean like suicidal ideation, really irregular appetite. Like I could put down a fridge on some days and
eat a whole pizza.
yeah,
You know.
in one sitting without a second thought, right?
Yeah.
It's just like done. And then there were days where I was like so sick of myself and self-loathing that I wouldn't eat for days. And so it was just this extreme hot and cold with how I felt about myself, that it affected everything. It affected like intimacy with my partner. Like there were days where I hated myself so much I wouldn't let him touch me because I'm like, no, I'm too gross. And so it was just like, how do you take care of yourself when your brain is doing these things, right? Your body, you feel like you're so at war with your body. And so because I wasn't bleeding, I wasn't keeping track of what was happening when. I thought I was bipolar. Like that's what came up for me. I was like, this is the only thing that makes sense, because it was even like I couldn't make plans, you know, like there were days I was missing work. Like I would just wake up on days crying, like sobbing uncontrollably. And I was like, what is going on? And zero control over it, right? And so my ex was the one who, he started keeping track, and he was like, these things are happening about this.
On a cycle. Yeah,
on a cycle. And so we tried to see some doctors. This is all while I was living in France, like traveling / living in France. And we tried to see some doctors, but I was also experiencing extreme paranoia.
Interesting.
Yes. And so, and I think it was all part of this, like, I just had this mistrust of my body. So how could I trust anything outside of myself, right? It was this crazy thing. And so I had a couple doctor's appointments where I could get myself to the doctor's appointment, but then I'd be frozen in the parking lot. And there was like one where my ex had to leave work and come pick me up because I was like, I'm stuck here. I can't move. So it was just stuff that was so unfamiliar to me. I was like, this isn't normally how I function.
This isn't me.
This isn't me. And I had never really struggled with anxiety, depression. Like none of these things were, when I was younger, because I asked my parents about it, and I did have, you know, some pretty intense mood swings when I was a teenager around my like bleed starting, things like that. But this was out of control. This was nothing I had experienced before. And so I finally ended up taking a trip back here to Spokane from France, went to the doctor who put my IUD in with my mom. My mom came with me. And I had also watched videos, because again, we were trying to get all this information off the World Wide Web. And there were Dr. Googs, and there were videos of women showing you how to take out your own IUD if a doctor wouldn't take it out for you. Because that's a thing? That's a thing. That's a whole nother thing.
That's a thing?
That's an actual fucking thing. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I had no clue.
Right. And like considering what we know about IUDs and all the other like physical complications, like it can get embedded in your uterus. So it's like
Things
if you're
can go wrong.
If you're yanking, like women
you can bleed out.
Yeah, you can die. And so there's this whole thing where like I had read online and seen videos, people were like, if you want it out, just go in and say that you're ready to have babies. You're trying to get pregnant. And then they'll take it out, no problem. Right. But if you say that you have symptoms related to this thing, they won't take it out because they're admitting guilt. They're admitting that this thing can have these side effects. So it was crazy. So I actually flew home to the US. I was here for 2 weeks. My mom came with me. They wouldn't take it out. They said that they asked me if I was in an abusive relationship and possibly if that's why these things were happening to me. They like asked me all sorts of things about my diet and exercise. They were like, well, you've gained weight. That could affect your mental health. So I was like, you're going to victim and fat shame me before?
And like, there's like a rage boiling from my solar plexus, like in my belly, Care Bear style rage. Like,
but just like, I think about women, and like, I am a woman who is at this point in time, like I'm college educated.
Yeah.
I was raised in a very healthy home. I have support and community around me. And I almost gave up on myself many times, right? And so it's like to be in a place to be able to advocate for yourself when you're in this mental state is damn near impossible. Right. And so they actually didn't take it out. I went back out into the waiting room sobbing, and my mom was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And so
thank goodness you had her as a secondary advocate.
Yes, right? And again, like my mom is a white woman.
Yeah.
And so I think there's also a difference there, like being in a medical space. And so she demanded, she was like, you're taking it out. So I had to go back in, get all like lubed up all over again.
Take off your pants and sit on the paper.
Yeah, like I would love to just do this over and over again. Like Groundhog's Day.
This is the cutest look.
From hell.
I love it. Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't that be the worst Groundhog's Day where it's like you over and over again?
Have to get your IUD out. Have to undress and like hide your underwear like a feral animal in your pants.
Your feet in
like
the
they're
stirrups.
gonna look at your vagina, but they're not. I don't want you to see my underwear.
Oh my Lord. So ended up getting it taken out, and they're like, so this is hilarious to me now that I've learned more about.
It's like funny, not funny.
It's funny, not funny. It's like okay, either we're sobbing or we're crying.
Yeah,
so we're
it's
gonna,
fine.
We're gonna, or sobbing or we're laughing. So we're gonna laugh. But they took it out and they were like, okay, so the Mirena is only localized hormones. It doesn't affect the rest of your body.
Oh, it doesn't?
I was like, I don't think that.
Did your penis tell you that?
This was a woman, right? Also, that's what's also heartbreaking.
It's a bummer.
It's like, girl, we're on the same team.
We're on the same team.
I started my period the next day. You know, they were like, this won't affect anything. You're going to stay on the same cycle, which I was like, what fucking cycle? Like, I haven't bled in years.
I was like oozing icky stuff. It was like my body was clearly creating it, but wouldn't let it go.
Yeah.
And so there's like a literal blockage, and I would like get icky, brown, stinky, like unhealthy,
right?
Overflow of stuff that's just being held on to.
Yeah. Yeah. But don't worry.
But don't worry,
it wasn't the IUD.
It wasn't the IUD. No. Couldn't be. No.
Right? So, so that was my whole experience with getting it taken out. And then I just kept experiencing these horrific side effects, mostly mental. But right after I got it taken out, I got like 3 UTIs in a row. And I'd never had a UTI before. Yeah. So, which I'm also guessing is like, whatever, like stuff gets stuck in there, you know, like, I don't know. Things. Like,
it's a hot place.
Mushrooms. I don't know what's growing.
Things are occurring.
Things are happening that I have zero awareness of. But so I ended up getting 3 UTIs in a row, which again, never had one before. Didn't really, and I was back in France at this point, which they're lovely. In France, the first thing they'll do is they'll offer you holistic remedies. So
that's cool.
Like essential oils, like pharmacy grade essential oils, and they'll tell you how to take them and all that kind of stuff. And then they're like, then if this doesn't work in a certain amount of time, then come back and we'll look at antibiotics.
I love that.
Same. Unfortunately, the antibiotics that I ended up having to get onto because it wasn't going away, like it would clear up and then come back like a week or 2 later. One of them is one of the antibiotics. I can't remember the name. I wish I could so I could save us all. But one of them is also now banned. And I believe the Mirena IUD, I think it's banned in some places in Europe. Yeah.
I believe it.
Right. But that also, I had one of my worst like suicidal ideation. I've never attempted, but like the thoughts, right?
What
like,
if I just drove my car off the side of the road? What if that semi hit me? What
all the
if
time.
I just never came back?
Yeah,
They'd
all
be
the time.
okay.
Maybe if I just like held my breath long enough, like I would just disappear.
What if I just went underwater and didn't come up?
Yeah, all the time. So that one was really hard, and we were traveling, like we were visiting friends in Spain at the time too. So it was just like trying to like hold some of that together was just like awful. But so this just kept happening. And so during this time, like from before when I got it out through all this time, like I'm with my ex-husband and he's tracking, he's putting me on an all organic diet. He's doing all these things to try to like support excess hormones and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, ultimately it just came down to this understanding that like, okay, now I have this. I have this hormonal thing. And I think what's confusing about PMDD for those who are experiencing it or researching it is it's not a hormonal imbalance. That's what gets really confusing. Yes. And so, and that was hard too, is like I would go to doctors and try to describe this thing. And they'd ask me, do you have a regular period? You know, like, what does it look like? And I'm like, my cycle is very regular. And so they're like, so you're fine. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to die.
Yeah.
Like, the 2 weeks leading up to my period,
But my whole luteal phase is death.
Yes.
Destruction.
Yes. And so basically, and it can, like, right, again, every woman is different.
Yeah.
And so, or every menstruating person is different. And so you can have, maybe you do have a hormonal imbalance, and that's also making PMD hard to track because it's irregular or all these different things.
Interesting.
In my case, it wasn't an imbalance, but I have an adverse reaction to the hormone progesterone.
Interesting.
Yes. And what's crazy, and like, I kind of figured this out slowly. So all this stuff happens. I finally moved back to the US in like late 2018. And so from the moment I had gotten it out, so that's been probably like 6 months at this point since I have the IUD out, I moved back to the US, and my ex at the time was applying for his visa. So he wasn't going to be coming for a couple more months. So it's like a great time to just be off everything.
Yeah.
And later, once like a month or 2, 3 months before he was going to come, I was going to try to find a pill that would work for me. And the first pill I was on like threw me for a loop. And luckily, I got in with a really great nurse who did some Googling and found that the pill they put me on had the same synthetic form of progesterone that the Mirena IUD did.
Interesting.
Yes. So I was like, okay, so there's something there that is connected. Tried another pill. It worked for a couple months, and then the same thing started happening again. So I have been off birth control completely since 2019. And just like, yeah. But so for my case, every time, like around ovulation, usually like on ovulation or a couple days after, which is when your progesterone's supposed to spike because that's your main pregnancy hormone. So it's like the idea is like if you were to have gotten pregnant, like that hormone spikes up to keep it all happening, and then that stays through pregnancy. But if you aren't pregnant, then right before you bleed, it drops back down. And so that luteal phase is why people are a little bit like, duh, sometimes. And sometimes it can be like the best part of life for some women.
Yeah, some women's brains are like, this is the best. And they're the ones that also usually love pregnancy.
Yes,
They're like the most magical pregnant person.
Yeah.
And you're like, who are you?
Right?
Most magical time of my life. I'm like, that's a dirty lie.
Right? So I was just like, yeah, trying to figure all that out. I have one of my best friends. She just got certified as a FAM instructor. And so I was one of her, which is like how to track your cycle naturally without birth control. And I think it used to be very common, like in religions, where it's like you're mostly like when to get pregnant kind of thing. But turns out you can use it both ways.
Double-edged sword.
It works both ways, people. And so I was one of her first practice clients, and I had a session where I cried because I was like, how do we not know this? Like, this is basic information, just to go through the whole cycle and understand what hormones are at play, what you can expect your body to do if it's behaving the way that it's intended to, or to know, oh, that's not what's happening, so maybe I can go in and advocate for myself, right? Like, it was just crazy. So that was huge for me. And so I started using that tracking method to understand my symptoms. And so this was a really long story, but all of that led to like, okay, how do I create a holistic lifestyle that will support this? There's someone I follow on Instagram. Oh my gosh, I'm going to forget. I'll have to look up her thing.
Yeah,
but,
we'll include it in whatever notes.
Yeah. But she has great information specifically about PMDD. She had it from a very young age and suffered and has done all this training and learning and really helps women. So she has a program called PMDD Rehab that I've done. She also helps with like mineral hair testing to see like, yeah. So, and she offers one-on-one coaching. I've never done her coaching, but I might if I have any money. But
it's on my docket.
It's on the list. But her stuff was also really helpful. And so truly, like for me, it's this idea of like you need community, you need resource, helpful, honest, factual resource. But I just started realizing like it takes everything. It's not just diet and exercise, ladies, which I think is what we're told a lot.
They're told diet and exercise, but we completely neglect or negate the mental, emotional, spiritual components.
Yes.
Like, why are you resistant to this habit?
Yes.
Why are you resistant to XYZ?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we avoiding this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
right. And they all connect, right? It's like you have to have diet and exercise is critical. Like you have, and not diet as in dieting, right? But like eating foods that nourish your body, that your body doesn't reject or hate or whatever. And that's been like a really great reframe for me too, where it's like, okay, I don't respond really well to sugar. I love it. But I love her so much. I love her so much.
I just want to eat all the benedictories.
I was telling someone, for the last year, I've stopped drinking. I used to also smoke a lot of marijuana. That was I know, it was one of my greatest coping mechanisms for depression. And like props to her, because she got me out of some dark places. Like I think there is, there's a purpose for things. But I also realized it was keeping me complacent in some areas of my life that weren't helping me move forward. And so I got to a point where I no longer needed it to stay alive. Yeah. And so I decided to take a break from it. But I joke now, I'm like, my drug of choice, I'm on the shug.
I'm on the shug. It is, though.
It really is.
It's addictive.
It is. It's
truly addictive.
Halloween was a rough one, you know?
I bet. Yeah.
But finding ways where it's like, you can find ways to nourish yourself, both in ways of pleasure as well as ways of true like nourishment and health and care, right? I've been really into cottage cheese ice cream lately. Ooh. My friend says I need to find a different name for it because that sounds gross, but it's really good. It's really good. Look it up.
I'm only just learning how to add cottage cheese to things because cottage cheese on its own,
the curdiness,
I can't. It's the texture of the little individual curds.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Okay, so the ice cream, you blend it. Yeah. Blend it so it's super smooth and creamy.
I put it like protein stuff and I blend it and I make like nice cream.
Yep, exactly. Yes, that's what I've been doing.
Protein nice cream.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, Lactaid makes because I'm also lactose free. That also happened.
How does that work with cottage cheese?
Lactaid makes a lactose-free cottage cheese, and the slogan is, you can eat cottage cheese again. I say it every time I buy it. I'm like, I can eat cottage cheese
I can
again.
do it. Ding! Please sponsor. Yeah.
Yo, I should be.
This episode is sponsored by it.
It's not sponsored. If I'm not sponsored by Lactaid, cottage cheese, and embodied jumpsuits, I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what you're doing either.
I'm not wearing one,
you
but
really,
I should.
Every time I see you in one, I'm like, God damn, I gotta do it. Like, you really do need to have your own link at least.
They're so good. They're so good.
You wear them constantly and they look so good on you.
I know. I've recently taken a break because for a while it was the only thing I was wearing, and I was like, I'm gonna put on pants for just like a minute.
Don't fix it if it ain't broke. Like, I just you look fabulous.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I could go on about my health journey forever, but that was a big part of it, is just like going back to that thing of like, there is no quick fix, right? Mm-hmm. And so a big part of, I think, my healing, especially since I moved back to the US in 2018, 2019, was like friends. I realized also, like, I've always been a social person, and when I'm out, I'm very outgoing, but I didn't always know how to have like deep, long-lasting, vulnerable friendships. And I started over the last couple of years having this reframe where I was like, oh, it's a relationship. Like, just like I would work hard with a romantic partner, to be like, okay, we had a fight, how do we repair? But I feel like so often you have a fight with a friend and you're like, well, I guess we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. And like the way I had lived my life, I was always like, well, I'm moving. So I just never kept people, or I kept people at a distance. And so that was another big part of my healing journey, was like, I need strong friends in my life, and like I have to do that work. And so part of my coming back to Spokane is I would ask people on friend dates, because I had a couple friends here like from high school and stuff, but a lot of us were just living different lives. Like they already were a little bit more settled down, and so their schedules are just different. And so I saw them, but not as much. And so I would, run into somebody at the coffee shop who I had a good vibe with. I'm like, we should like do this more often.
You want to go on a date?
Yeah.
And like making adult friends for women in particular, I feel like outside of a workspace, outside of a school space, is not talked about very often.
No.
It feels difficult and scary, but it does not have to be difficult and scary.
Yeah.
One of my best friends ever, we ended up living together. Our partners are best friends now. Like, we were in their wedding, like all of these things, all because I was at Lululemon taking a free yoga class in 2015, and she was sitting next to me, and her pants looked really cool, and like just me being awkward and like just me. It's like, are your pants actually textured?
Can I touch
them?
And
she goes, yeah, they are. And I said, can I touch them? It felt very Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
And she's like, oh yeah. And I'm like,
those are it.
Those are cool. And she's like, And we ended up talking a little bit after class, then we ran into each other at the coffee shop a little later in the day. And of course, I go off on one of my tangents of just like, and then, do you want to get coffee sometime? And she's like, yes, I want to get coffee sometime. And I come to find out like years later that she didn't understand any of the references I had in my tangent. She's like, I had no clue what you were talking about.
That's amazing.
But I just heard the end question of, do you want to grab coffee? And so here we are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen very frequently.
No.
And that's kind of another branch of staying comfortable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
As far as like, you're staying comfortable by avoiding a healing journey. You're staying comfortable by not putting yourself out there. You're staying comfortable by not following your what ifs. You're staying comfortable by not transforming or letting go or whatever it is. And I want to kind of segue from your health journey, a piece of it earlier. What was it? Wasn't the shedding component? Oh, it was feeling through your anger. And it's like, I feel everything more now.
Yeah.
Because I've opened this door to healing. I am able to not only feel my anger and my hurt and my grief fully.
Yeah.
I am able to feel my joy and my love and my laughter fully as well. And you can't have one without the other. And we do tend to fixate on the bad, and we want to fix versus just embody and enjoy.
Yeah.
And where I want to go with that is, on your social, there are a couple of posts where there are these beautiful poems. And I know from your meditations and your yoga classes that you really do have a beautiful way with words and expressing exactly what they need to hear. Like, you read the bodies, you read the energy, and you're just, It's this beautiful gift that you have to connect and to verbalize it in a way that can be connected to and loved and felt. And so I wanted to kind of question, are the words that are coming through you, do you write them in a journal and they're poetry? Are they, what's your creative process around your healing, I guess, is what I want to ask.
That's such a fun question, because I actually didn't know that they were poems until I started posting those, and people were like, you're a beautiful poet. And I'm like, those aren't poems. And they're like, yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're poems. You're like, those are just words strung together nicely.
And sometimes there's a rhythm to it.
Yeah.
But no, so at Anam Cara Healing Center here in downtown Spokane, Hannah, the owner, she asked me to take over the Monday morning meditation class called Peaceful Renewal. And I was like, I've never led a meditation class. She was like, yeah, you have.
Right.
And I was like,
I'm like, oh, you haven't? I'm like bologna sandwich.
Because at this point I had taught like a couple yin yoga classes for them. And I was in the class, whatever. I was been more of a participant. And she was like, I'm wondering if you'd take over this 7 a.m. class for me, which you got me, Hannah. Middle of winter. You win. You win.
You were like, wait a minute, I didn't think this through.
Yeah,
she asked me in the spring.
Yeah, I was like, it's 6:15 in the morning.
Hannah's playing chess.
She's winning. She's winning the day. But I was like honored that she would ask me, and I was like, I've never led a meditation class. And she was like, yes, you have. Like, she was like, I came to your class. What you do for Shavasana, that's meditation. And I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, mind blown. And so I started doing these classes. And at first it felt overwhelming, where I was like, what do I talk about every week?
Yeah.
And then for me, what helped is I was like, okay, I'm going to pick something to focus on for myself to meditate on for the month. And so for these classes, and I had a month theme that I was working off of. But for myself, like when I walked in nature, when I sat with myself in the morning, before I went to bed at night, when I journaled, I was focusing, and it would come for different things. Like either I'd have a conversation with someone, I'd be like, oh yeah, like a good friend of mine, Christina, her thing for a while that she was focused on was embodiment. And then there was another time where I just pulled an affirmation card from this collection I have at home. Or sometimes, whatever. Like it just comes from whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's what I want to think about for a while. Yeah. Or like my own processes, right? And so I picked these themes, and then I would somehow talk about them every week in these meditation classes. And then those reels that I started doing on Instagram, which I think I did like 3. Social media and I have a love-hate relationship. I'm like...
It's one of those like necessary evils to do well in some ways, but then you obsess over. It's a whole thing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's a situationship. So those started being like the monthly reflection. So after I had meditated on this theme, both like for myself and in guiding them at the end of the month, that was like the culmination of the things I had talked about. Like that was the summary of what I had learned over the month. And usually I don't write them down. So the way I do them is I voice record them. Like I get in a meditative state and I just talk through it. And then to be able to do a reel and make it clean and whatever, then I'll go through and I'll write down what I wrote, what I said. Sure. And then I'll like edit it and fix it and make it like clean to fit into a 45-second reel. Right. Whatever it is, but generally it's like just I talk them out. So those are all just like meditations that come through. Which has been super fun. I'm like, oh, I love this. And it's funny, right? Like you were saying, social media is this like double-edged sword, because for a while I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. But I've noticed it was also keeping me accountable to like keep me meditating and keep me doing my own work for the month. So then I had something to share.
Had this like offering.
Yeah.
Of beautiful words strung together, not poetry.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my process. Is I just so cool. I've never ever been a good like I don't plan things in advance. Like my yoga classes, my meditations, even my Mondays, like I'll have a theme, but I get to Anam Cara at 6:30 in the morning. I'll write down a couple things, or I'll just talk through what comes. And I think like that's something that I have leaned into. Is I used to give myself a lot of guilt and shame around like you're never prepared. You're always procrastinating. You're always last minute. But then in just like leaning in and offering what I have to offer, I get feedback that people are like, you spoke to my body and said exactly what it needed to hear. You spoke to the moment. And I'm like, actually, I think that's where my gift is like sitting in the moment and speaking to it. And I can't do that a week in advance, right? And so there's kind of been a thing there that I'm trying to play with, which is funny as like a business owner, because there's like shit you should do in advance. And I'm like, and one of my offerings that I do for like retreats and things is I do audio guided meditations. And so I like have to
Those are in advance.
Those are in advance. And I just try to do the same thing where it's like I just get into my own meditative state, I talk it out, say what I want to say, and then I'll go through and transcribe it and edit it out. But it is a lot of like visualization and trying to be in that moment, which is interesting because it's like kind of opposite to meditation where I'm not present, I'm future, but I'm trying to be
it's almost
present
more like
in the future.
We can rephrase as far as it's a timeline jump. You're trying to feel the energy of a technically future event.
Yeah.
And level it above you so that you can embody it now.
Yeah, what you said. That's what I
do. We're just timeline jumping. We're really advanced.
Yeah, no big deal.
We're super advanced. I do, in that spirit, though, want to challenge a rephrase in your dialogue there. It's like, instead of, I don't plan ahead, it can be, I witness, I feel in the moment, I choose to be fully present with who is in front of me. Yeah. Instead of, because like, I think that the I don't plan ahead is residual or side effect of a should culture, of a perfectionism, of your schooling and everything. Like, and then that guilt and all of those different pieces of this old version.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that, because I think that's the part where I'm like growing into it, right? And I think that's what's important, right, for people to realize is like, we're not there yet. There is no
we have not arrived. Until I'm dead, I've gone nowhere.
There's no like there. And so that's what I'm trying to remind myself. I'm like, that is my gift, is that like I am good at being fully present in present moments, and that's what I bring to spaces. And yeah, I can plan ahead when
you
needed.
can when you need to.
When
You've
it
proven
serves.
yourself that it can.
Yeah, when it serves.
You've gone through formal education, like you know what I mean?
Posh.
Like you know how to do things.
Totally.
You can. I don't choose to thrive in that way.
Yeah.
It is a zone of excellence even maybe, but it is not your zone of genius.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. So it's fun. It's been fun to like lean into that, because then my flow is so much more flowy.
Yeah.
Where I know like I don't feel the pressure I used to feel on a Sunday night. Like, you shouldn't feel stressed before meditation class. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, come with what you got.
Healthy jitters, sure, of like these people are coming and they're used to Hannah.
And same with my yin yoga classes. Like, I used to be like, especially, same with like when I started with Anam Cara, where I was like, I would get there like 2 hours in advance to be like, this has to be planned out. And now I'm like, sometimes I write them down. And sometimes, like, if I have a specific focus or something I really want to make sure that we touch on in terms of like the body, but other times I'm like, let's just show up. I'll see who's there, because then it also allows me to be like trauma informed. It allows me to be body informed of like the other week, couple weeks ago, my dad came to his...
How cute. You stop it right now.
His first ever yoga
It's been a
class.
long time. You've been doing this for a while.
I have been yoga certified since 2015. And I've been teaching.
Like, well.
Yeah, I've taught here in Spokane
So
in a couple different places over the last like several years, and like some formal, some informal. But yeah, he came to his very first one. And so I was like, my goal, right, is that like if you're with me, you're present. And to be present, you have to be safe.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be, or you have to have, the environment needs to be safe for you to feel safe, right? I think you always have to decide if you're safe. But I feel like a big responsibility that it's my job. And so I get a lot of people, I'm honored in my career to have had a lot of people that are like, this is my first yoga class. I'm like, dope.
What's that?
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be good. And so it's like, right, like just by the way someone walks into the room, the way they can get down on the floor, like that shows me what we're able to do in a way that's going to, like, I think in education, it's called the zone of proximal development, which like was one of my favorite things that I learned before I became a teacher. And it's this idea of it's enough stretch, it's enough growth that you feel challenged and you feel growth, but it's not so much that you're like lost and out of control and feel unsafe. And so I think about the same thing for physical movement, right? Where it's like, we're going to do enough stuff that you leave feeling like, I did it, you know? Look at me, I did a yoga class.
I'm invigorated.
Yeah, but I don't want you leaving hurt. I don't want you leaving overstretched. I don't want you leaving like, I couldn't do half of those poses, which I think is a lot of the ways people feel when they go to yoga places. And so I'm like, every body is welcome, you know, to come and explore. Because the beautiful thing about yin too is it's like your body is going to show you what it needs to do, right? And like there is, none of these poses are going to look the same because you're finding where your boundaries are and where your stretch is at. And so, yeah.
Oh, so good. I'm like, where do I want to go next? I'm so glad that your dad went. That's so cute.
I know.
I love that so much.
My mom like texted me. I was already at Anam Cara and she was like, I'm bringing a guest. And part of me was annoyed. I was like, well, did they pay? Like Yeah. I was like, sure, I'll set up a whole other mat. And she was like, he's a little grumpy, but he's willing. And I was like, oh my God, it's my dad. So funny.
Oh my goodness. I'm so proud of you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I also think I went on a tangent. I don't remember what that question was.
No, it's perfect. like I wanted to hold space for like a little slow right here. Because like we have been going for a second, like we can take sips for a second.
Yeah.
We can be.
I know. Well, it is nice that you're editing stuff, so it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't have to. Like...
Yeah. I can just like cut. But I want to hear more about the inspiration and the feeling and the maybe freedom I anticipate of your new look.
Oh.
I like it's stunning.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's striking.
Thank you.
And you have always been stunning because your energy is stunning. And like I mentioned before, hair or no hair, like I am just, I don't know how to explain it. I was the kid that was voted friendliest in high school. Yeah. Like
I love that that's a category.
I know. Like why? What? Like the pictures of this guy Marquise and I like shaking hands. Because we're like, how do you pose for friendliest? Like we did frowns and they didn't include that picture. But I wasn't ever a really cool kid. But I was always a really nice kid. And I was always good enough to play varsity sports. And I excelled in that way because I felt like I had to, even though it wasn't my zone of genius.
Yeah.
I was willing to push myself to fit in this other box that I felt like I had to fit into. And I was always a really nice kid that people liked. No one had anything bad to say. But I never felt cool. And so, like, you know, and every time I tried cool on, I found that the cool kids were kind of mean.
Yeah.
And I would try to be mean.
Yeah.
Or I would try to, like, match someone's energy of a little angsty, of a little rude to someone. And I can specifically remember the moments, the physical feeling of discomfort when, like, there were only, like, a small handful of times where I was, like, actively mean to another person to, like, look cool.
Yeah.
And it was, like, 5, maybe, and I feel them in my soul, and I want to go hug that version of myself and tell the person I just said something mean to, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But my whole experience through Reiki and SEP was, like, I'm sitting at the cool kids table. Like, this, like, I like flashed my braces back on and like my slicked bun because I had soccer practice after school. And I just am like, when I got yeses from people to come on to this, everyone was so excited too. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like, and I'm like, really? Like, you're going to come sit at the table with me? Like, we're going to sit at the cool kids table together? And I just, so long story short, I am just so excited. I feel like I'm going to end up sounding really redundant on every single episode of, like, I'm just so happy you're here. And I am so proud of you. And when I saw the transformation, it's like, I would have loved whatever you did with your hair or, like, face makeup, tattoos, whatever you wanted to do. I'd always be like, yes, queen, you do it. And because I know you as an embodied person, and I would just love to hear more about this journey, of this component of your journey.
Thank you. I love that you brought in high school. First of all, I feel like you've always been cool. I haven't known you forever, but I also felt the same way where it's like when I came to, like, I've always kind of had a hard time figuring like where I fit in the wellness community in Spokane, because when I moved back, I was teaching like in Kendall Yards for a little bit. I would do like summer classes in the park, but the reason I got certified for yoga in the first place was because I didn't feel like I fit into studios, or I couldn't afford studios, right?
Sure.
And so like when I found Anam Cara, my mom introduced me to Hannah and Anam Cara. I was like, oh, this is where the cool kids are. And like you all it felt like you all already knew each other, and I was like just this outsider. So I think that's funny. It always feels like the perspective is always flipped, right? Where it's like, no, you're the cool kid.
You're the cool kid.
But yeah, the hair. So I came home this summer. I got to travel with my cousin and a friend, and then I met up with my mom, and it was a very, a trip I was very resistant to after my divorce and my separation. And my mom was like, you need to go on a trip. And I was like, I don't have any money.
Mom!
I was like, are you paying for it? And things just aligned and worked out. And I got a renter in my house. And then I was like, okay, like, I'm going to do it.
Sure.
And so while I was on this trip, I ended up going for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gone for a minute. And I think it was the first time I ever took a vacation. Like, I've lived in Europe, and so I've had family in Europe, or I worked in Europe, you know, like,
right.
It was always like for a thing. Like, I was going to, like, for family, or I was going, you know, for a holiday or for work or whatever. But I was like just going this time. And I went and I sat on the beach like all the time, and I just ate food. My goal while I was there was to eat an ice cream every single day, and I did it.
Yeah. I accomplished my goal.
Check. Because I don't have a dairy issue in Europe. Also on brand.
Also, I was literally about to say that's on brand. Because people can eat bread in Europe, but they can't eat bread here because it's all toxic.
Yep.
Yep. I don't have a soapbox. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine.
We're gonna make it.
It's all good.
But yeah, I ate so much ice cream and sat on the beach, and I just existed.
Yeah.
On vacation.
Because you're allowed to.
I'm allowed to. I was like, oh my God, people do this all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I did that, and while I was there, I was working for a company. I don't know how far this podcast is going to stretch, but I was working for a company.
No, we just do all the, like, Stephanie and I talked for like over 2 hours.
Yeah. Well,
I like saved all the time.
I'm just saying, like, if anyone from my work hears this. But anyways, I knew I was going to be gone for 4 weeks, but I asked for 3 weeks off because that already felt like a lot. Yeah. And I was like, okay, either, and I had been wanting to quit this job for a very long time. But it was one of those, like, I had unlimited time off. It was good pay. It was just, like, not aligned with who I was. It was not sparking.
Technically a good gig.
No. Yeah. And there was a lot of drama happening where I was like, I just don't want to be in this anymore. And I was already, for the last couple years, feeling this pull to do my wellness work full time. And so, yeah, so I was like, I go on this trip. I was like, by the end of it, either I'm going to take a couple meetings my last week in Europe, or I'm going to quit. And I got to the end of it, and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to go back. And I had already wrapped things up because I was gone for 3 weeks.
How convenient.
So I was like, and like new projects were
perfect plan.
I was making it for so long. I was like, this is going to happen.
It's all coming together, Kronk.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I like was so nervous. My mom like helped me draft an email.
Oh my gosh. You're like sitting on the beach with your ice cream, like,
Right? And I sent it. And because of the time difference, I got a response right away. And it was just like, okay, great. I'm like so worried they're going to be mad. And I'm like, they're not mad because like they don't care. But so that happened. By the time I woke up the next morning, like all my work email, everything was already shut off.
Damn.
And there was like a part of my ego was like, oh, they didn't like
so quick
beg
more
for me.
In my loss. Yeah, they didn't like offer me more money.
Yeah, and then the other part of me, which was like probably like I would say 85% of me was like, I'm free.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm totally free.
I just like felt that offload of like
I was like, I got 1 more week in Europe.
Yeah.
I've already saved the money for this trip. Like, I'm doing it.
Amazing.
And I was like, I'm done. And so that was like during the last week, I like finished, like added some stuff to my wellness website. I was like, this is my thing now. But anyway, so I came back from that trip. So I had quit my job. I had just started with my first client for coaching. And I was like, I need a new hairstyle. Like that's the next piece.
It's what we must
it's
do.
Like in the last, so this would have been in July. So from January to July, I had separated and gotten divorced, moved out of my house, quit my job, gone to Europe on vacation. Yeah, got to have a new partner.
Burn the boats.
Yes, and then I was like, this shit's gotta go.
She's heavy.
She's heavy. She's holding on to things that she doesn't need.
Gretchen Wiener's hair is full of secrets.
And I have done like drastic haircuts before, and so I came home and I chopped it like to like my chin.
Sure.
And I was like,
As we do. We
And I was
move
like,
on it, you know.
This ain't me.
Yeah.
And I had it for a couple days, and I hated it. And I hated it in such a ferocious way that I was like I was crying about it. And it wasn't a bad haircut. Like, my hairstylist, she's dope.
She did a sassy bob.
She did a sassy bob, which is exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
She nailed it, and I was like, this ain't me.
You were like, I was told not to go this far because my hairdresser told, or you know what I mean? Like, my logic, my whatever was like, don't buzz it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
And like, I hadn't even mentioned to anyone that I had thought of this before. And so I just like, I had the bob, and I was like, nah, like, and like teaching for Anam Cara, you're on Zoom. So I'm just like staring at myself multiple times, and I was like,
it doesn't fit. It needs to like Lego hair come off.
Exactly. Yes. And I had been crying and complaining about it so much that my partner, I had sent him a couple like Pinterest images of girls with buzzed hair, and I was like, what do you think? He's like, I think it would be dope. What do you think? And I was like, I
wanted external approval.
Yeah. I was like, I need
I'm gonna do it tonight.
Yeah. And so he literally, like, I was like crying about my hair. I'm in bed, and he's like, I buzz my own hair. Do you want me to buzz it?
Yeah.
And I was like, because I'm crying about it, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna sleep on it. And then I went to class the next morning, saw myself on Zoom, and I was like, no, I'm done.
All done.
Went back to his place, buzzed it.
And
it felt so good. And I'm so grateful to him for doing it too, because I know the process was not cute.
Right.
You know, like, you have to like kind of go long before you go fully short.
Everything.
And so he was so good. He was like, I'm not going to do this until you kiss me 3 times. And it probably took me 5 minutes, right? I'd like give him a kiss, and I was like, yeah. And I kept like pulling my hair back, and I have 3 brothers, and I was like, which one am I going to look like?
Which one am I going to look like?
But I like finally gave him the 3rd kiss, and he was like, all right, close your eyes.
Let's do it.
And he did it, and I immediately loved it. And I immediately felt better, and
this is me.
Yeah, he took little like Polaroids, which I posted on my story, and
they're stunning.
He was like, you're glowing, and I was like, I feel like me. And that was this cool thing of like, I've never had hair this short before.
Right.
And I was like, it's like just me now. Like, there's no like, how am I gonna wear my hair today? What hairstyle matches my outfit, matches my vibe, matches my energy level? And it was just like, no, like,
I don't wanna.
Just me. And so, yeah, it feels so good. I was just doing a tiny bit of a grow out for the last like month or so. And then I was like, already it's more maintenance than it is buzz.
Like, how?
Because like I would sleep, and then like I would get little like cowlicks that would stick up, and so I'd have to re-wet my hair. And so I just...
It's just something I don't even think about because I don't know.
Yeah, so I was like, no, I'm done. So I re-buzzed it. And I buzz it like short. This is even like, this is a couple days grown out. But turns out my hair grows really fast also. But yeah, my only issue right now is hats. Bald
I was just
heads.
thinking. I was like, I am so excited for your hat game this winter.
It's begun.
You must collect.
Well, I never thought of myself as a hat person in the last several years, but now...
Because you had so much hair.
I had so much hair.
Hair is hard, especially when it's dark hair, because you can't do any kind of dark hat.
No.
Because if you have a dark hat, then it blends into your hair.
Yeah.
And then it messes with the hair. So when you arrive, like, you're committed to the hat for the day.
Totally. No, I'm not.
No, you're not. You're free.
Yeah. So I've got a couple beanies that are doing me good. I've got a fuzzy bucket hat that has made its debut once so far this season, but I think it's probably going to be a staple.
Yes.
So,
I'm so excited.
But yeah, there was like a couple weeks ago, I was working an event at the convention center, and I decided to walk there and walk back, and it started raining as I was walking back, and I was like, oh, my naked little head. I was like, my scalp has never been rained on. I felt so vulnerable, and I had no hood, and I was like,
oh, no.
What is this?
The hell?
Yeah. So, new sensations.
Oh my gosh.
I'm out here.
You're out here. I'm so excited for the hats. I want to just like receive random text pictures of your hats for the day.
Maybe I'll make that like a story.
Hat of the day.
Yeah.
Yay or nay.
Yay or nay.
That's going to be a segment.
I
that has
wait.
to be hat of the day, yay or nay.
I love it.
Oh, I'm so excited. Do you want normal water?
Sure. These are like...
They just look nice.
They do. They're also like so extra.
They're so extra.
Like,
because I don't drink either. And
Yeah.
so, because like I'm allergic, and it's very seldom that I do at all. And so I've been trying to get into like different waters, and I ordered this in our grocery order, and I thought it was going to be sparkling water, or like carbonated water, not literally just water in a can. This is literally just water in a can.
In a tall boy. It is water in a tall boy.
So I just saved them for these moments.
Amazing.
So I'm like, I'm just going to bring these in for when I'm doing interviews and stuff, because it's a nice sealed container. It looks interesting.
It does. Murder your thirst. Wow. Yeah, I remember we saw these at a show a couple years ago, and I was still drinking, and I was like, I want that. And I was like, it's just water.
It's just water.
That's cool, I guess. Mountain water.
I saw it, the first time I ever noticed it fully was Stephanie at the Inlander event.
Oh, yeah, she had one.
Like, somehow I'd like seen them in coolers at stores. I thought they were alcohol. Of course, I assumed they were alcohol. They're just cute little waters. Costco, though, has little guys.
Are those the sparkling ones?
Yeah, but that's nice, because, like, to commit to a whole one of these...
Sparkling? No.
Sparkling is difficult. It's too many bubbles.
Yeah.
Too many bubbles. And so now at Costco, they have this massive box, because Costco, of the little ones, the normal ones.
Amazing.
It's been a good time.
There you go. No plastic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Your decision not to drink, because like I flare up in anaphylaxis, like I can't breathe and I get hives all over.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's cute.
Very.
How I found that out was really fun. I'm like falling asleep in a bar, and I'm like, oh, feel good.
Were you at a bar? So you were of age. I was gonna
Yeah,
say, was it a bummer
I was
where
of
you're
age. Fortunately, I didn't do much partying during high school because I had soccer.
Yeah, no.
And we were like always being like we were a competitive team. Yeah. We were being scouted by colleges. If you messed up, you were screwed. Like you were going to lose your scholarship kind of thing. And so we just didn't really.
Yeah.
And I did toward the end, and I think that I thought that's what drunk felt like.
Oh.
So I had never had enough because I was 120 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
And I had never had anything. So like I could get a little buzzed, and I never had a lot to drink at the very end of high school. But then when was the first time I like realized? It was my 21st birthday.
Oh.
Because I had like more to drink.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel good. I feel really sleepy. Like I'm getting congested. My skin's turning red, like and blotchy. And so whenever I do, like I have this scar on my hand. It in particular turns like bright red. It's very Harry Potter style.
Yeah.
Like
oh my
my
gosh.
scar.
That's wild.
It's ridiculous. And so like I've woken up post drunk to like Julian holding glass by my face to make sure I'm breathing. Because he's like, I thought you were dead.
No.
So anyways, I don't drink much.
Yeah.
But mine is like more of a health thing as opposed to like a choice. Like I don't know if I would choose as much. Not like I don't know because I don't know.
Yeah.
I do love the marijuana and when I started having big flare-ups for alcohol, my dad was supposed to die around that time, kind of thing. And so I had started smoking. And that was really nice. Like, I was like, oh, I understand why people have a glass of wine in the evening, because I could just smoke a bowl and I could feel that relief. Yeah. And I could kind of cope with and or compress the things into the dark place that I didn't want to bubble up. But stopped smoking because I moved in with the fuzz.
That's right.
He's the police. And he's like, yeah, like, I am cool with it. I know this is a part of you.
Yeah. And
if I have something go wrong at work and they have to search our house and they find weed in our house.
Oh, because was this before it was legal?
This is before, it's state legal, but it is not federally legal.
Oh, yeah, but.
So, yeah, he's err on the side of caution for everything. Like, literal detective, like. Like American Psycho. Like I love him so dearly. He's so funny. I love him so much. But he was like, I can't, like, I really just can't have you smoking in the house, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So I stopped smoking too. And I would love to hear more about like your embodied decision and what that looked like in your healing process, what that looked like in your ability to cope with discomfort, and how someone who's kind of like considering that kind of decision, long term or short term, how they might think about it in order to make the right choice for them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally. That's wild that you're allergic. My dad's allergic to alcohol.
It might be the Asian thing too, but like there's Asian glow, of course, but mine goes like from Asian glow into like
and I don't know, because he just hasn't, he also figured his out like in college around that time, and but it's kind of actually fun. So he found out he couldn't drink, so he would go to bars with friends and just eat chicken wings. And he was like, I could make these better. So my dad is Booey's Gourmet hot sauce. I don't know if you've ever, I should bring you some. But so he actually, like, thanks to being allergic to alcohol, he like developed his own line of hot sauces.
That's amazing. I was like, I don't think I know what this is.
Oh my gosh, I have to bring you, I'll bring you some.
Yes, please.
But yeah, so for me, I also have never been a big drinker. Like, in high school, I don't know if I ever drank in high school, like maybe a sip here or there, but I had an older brother who drank in high school, and some things happened to him that scared me.
Sure.
So I was like,
scared straight.
Yeah, exactly. and then in college, even before I was 21, I had done a few summers working abroad. So I got to experiment with drinking legally because I was in Europe. And it's just like a different culture around it. And so I think probably the first time I ever drank was abroad. And then coming back, like same, where it was like, oh, people like wanted me to go out all the time. And I think there was that idea of like, you're more fun when you drink kind of a thing.
Sure.
And so people are like, Jasmine, you're already fun. Like, you'd be even more fun if you were drunk.
Let's elevate this with some booze.
Yeah. And so like I would try a couple times, but like I didn't love the drinking scene. Like, fun fact, I was in a bar fight once. I got my ass kicked. I did not start it, nor did I finish it. I always thought, my dad always said, you never start a fight, but if someone starts a fight with you, you finish it. And I was like, as an athlete, I was like, yeah.
Yeah. My dad was always like, hit him. If you're going to hit him hard.
Yeah. No, I got my ass kicked.
And I beat the crap out of a little boy when I was in 4th grade.
Get it.
He made fun of my last name. Butler is ripe with opportunities.
I know. Booey.
Booey.
Booty. We would have been a great pair.
We would have.
But yeah, so I was never into the drinking scene in the first place. Like, I liked to go out and dance and stuff like that, but I didn't like drinking. And I've always been pretty frugal, so I'm always like, that's a lot of money to spend on.
Like $8 for a little pixie cup.
Yeah. And I've always been a real, like, lightweight in terms of, I just don't like the flavor of a lot. So I'm always that girl drinking who's like, like, not cute, because I'm like, gagging. So yeah, just like never been something I was super into in the first place. And with all my PMDD stuff, I started noticing that I would get, instead of being hungover, I would be depressed. So like my form of being hungover was like, I would have a terrible mood. And so the last time I ever drank was for a friend's birthday party. And it was really fun. We did a whole, like, I planned like a downtown bar crawl scavenger hunt.
Well, that's adorable.
It was so fun. And it was nice. Like, there was a group of us, and we all just would order like a couple drinks and share them all. And so no one was drinking a ton. But by the end of the night, like, I was buzzed.
A little buzz.
And the next morning, I just was like, woke up really upset and sobbing, like regretting things that I was like, I don't think they like me. Like, just this total, like, self-hatred down in the dumps.
Spiral.
Yeah. And then like I had a text from people that were like, that was so fun. Thank you so much for planning that. And so my husband at the time was like, I feel like they do like you.
You're not perceiving this in a healthy way.
Yeah. And so it kind of clicked for me where I was like, oh, now I can look back and see like, this is often how I react to alcohol.
Sure.
It's like, I think there's the high and the low.
Sure.
Which I think people who suffer with depression, like, that's common, right? And so I just sat in a place where I was like, I hate spending money on it. I don't love the taste of it. And to like the taste of it, I have to add sugar, which I think that's part of it. It's like, I also don't respond to sugar well. So I was like, I'm going to cut this out. And for me, so again, it's hard. Like, I think if you're somebody who really enjoys it, you're going to have to go through a whole different process of what it looks like to remove that from your life or limit it. But for me, and this is how I've done a lot of things. Like, this is how I work with sugar. This is how I work with certain foods. Because also when I smoked, I used to eat a ton. Sure. And so trying to, like, balance that as well.
Of course.
Of course. Everyone
darling.
Loves a late night third dinner.
Keep a nice stock of Trader Joe's items around.
Yeah. But what I try to do, and I think it's part of that visualization practice that I've had since I played sports, really. But just like imagining what my body's going to feel like on the other side, right? And so not in a way that's like shameful, but like I know, like, if I look at a big like creamy slice of cake, I'm like, yo, looks delicious. And then I can embody and imagine the bubbles in my stomach.
Right.
The way I'm going to feel, the bloat that's going to happen, and then, like, whatever the rest of the night holds.
What's the cost, what's the reward, and the why, and the everything.
And so I try to, like, visualize that to be like, is it worth it? Sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm like, I'll take a little stomach ache so I can have a slice, like, a little bit. Or I'm like, I'll just take one bite of this cheesecake that you're ordering, and then that's all. Yeah. But
I just want a nibble.
Just a little bite. So I think for me, that's always helped is, like, with alcohol, I'm like, what's it gonna feel like on the other side? And like thinking also like my time is precious, you know, like I don't want to waste a day feeling like shit, physically, mentally, spiritually. Like I don't have time for that shit. Like it used to bum me out so bad, where it's like I feel like whenever I had these depressive episodes, there's the real me that's way deep down in a hole trying to like tell me what's real. And then there's the depressed version of me that's on the surface saying horrible things, right? And the me deep, deep down, I feel like would always look out the window and be like, it's fucking sunny. And you're in here just telling yourself lies.
Yeah.
You know? And like, and you can't, and like I could hear it, but I couldn't hear it, you know? And so for drinking, that was a big part of it, where it was like, I don't have time. Like, I would much rather, I will go out with you, 100%. Right. Because, again, alcohol's not a temptation for me. So that's different for different people. But, like, I will totally go out with you. I will order a water. I will spend $0. I'll probably get some French fries at some point.
That's literally what I do at this point. Where it's like, I like going out and, like, bonding and communicating and experiencing with everyone. I don't care if other people drink. I'm not triggered by it. Like, it's not something that I've struggled with. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're truly addicted, if you truly have this other relationship with substances, then that would be really difficult to put yourself in that situation. But you're just as fun, right? Like you are just as fun, with one or like I fancy myself to be less fun.
Totally, because I'm like, I feel like it's a delicate dance, right? It's before you go over the edge, and it's like sometimes those moods would hit me early, like while I was still drunk, and so it's like I don't want to be the crying girl. Yeah, like I don't want to do that, and so that was part of it, and it has opened up like what are other things you can do besides going to a bar, and so when I first, like beginning of this last year, it's crazy, but it's the end of 2024.
It's fine, we're fine.
Right? But I was like just single, like separated, and like what do I do with myself? One of my best friends, she's not a big drinker, so we started going to West Coast swing classes. Fun. And then I got invited to go to Patterson's skate for adult skate night.
There's an adult skate night.
Oh my gosh.
Stop it.
Yes, every Wednesday and Sunday night, and then sometimes they toss in a Friday. Yes.
If we're getting freaky.
Adult skate nights where it's like they serve alcohol, but it's like, you know, Trulies and stuff, and people are just there dancing and having a good time. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many more beautiful things. Like I started going to the pivot events, the live storytelling events. Like I was like, there's so many other things that are so much more nourishing. And
you're still in bed by 10 most of the time, and
still
like,
a good time.
good.
Yeah, like still a great time, connecting more, and that like right. And then there's that alignment too of like that's supporting my goal of having deep friendships. That's supporting my goal of taking care of myself and getting enough sleep. That's supporting, you know, like finding those pieces that are in alignment with the way you're trying to live is like, I think something that I found. And it helps too that my current partner, I shouldn't call him current, he's just my partner. Partner number one.
This season's partner.
This season. Bachelor number one.
That takes me to Shrek. Take me to my lord.
My partner, who I love so much,
Yeah.
he also doesn't drink. And so that just kind of worked out. Like when we got
Works
together.
nicely.
Yeah, I was like, easy. So we're all like
We're all on board then.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's part of it too, right? It's like finding community who, one, either aren't going to pressure you or are going to like kind of live the same way. But yeah.
Are you comfortable discussing your journey through separation and divorce and rediscovery of self and opening yourself, like because of this rediscovery, feeling open to a new love?
Yeah.
Because all of that is such a... You have had such a resilient decade, but an incredible like impetus in the symphony, if you will, in the last year.
Yeah.
And there are so many women who, because they are keeping themselves comfortable by not choosing healing experiences or self-exploration, they are keeping themselves comfortable by staying in the relationship. They're keeping themselves comfortable by convincing themselves they are crazy or that like I have it so good, because like I don't perceive that there was anything specifically like terrible about your circumstance, but it wasn't what was serving you.
Yeah.
And that's almost harder, I perceive, as far as like, yes, like abusive component, like we're not talking about that, but like it can be really hard to choose yourself when externally there is not a big red flag anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Where do I start? Yeah, I think my relationship, my marriage, so I met, and the marriage itself was kind of interesting because, so like I said, he's from France. I did this whole whirlwind of traveling after college, and I met him, like we have a meet cute, you know? And I think there is part of that was like holding on to like the fairy tale doesn't end like this, is part of it. And so and there's so many factors that like I was with him for 10 years. We were married for 8. And there's so many things that I think kept us together. Like if we would have been residents of the same city, of the same country, with the same language, like all those things, but even just like living in the same place, if we would have just dated, who knows what would have happened, right? But we lived in this place where it was like, I met him. He was my couch surfing host when I was in Paris. So it was very like, you know,
Interesting. I'm like, I don't know your story, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So he was an art student, and I had just finished a year of nannying in Spain, was working a summer in Germany, trying to move back to Spain, but my visa got denied, and so I did this whole couch surfing trip, which, if you don't know, it's not as big anymore, but couch surfing is like an actual website. Yeah. And so I was couch surfing from the north of Germany back to Spain to like get my stuff and move back to Spokane. And so I had all these stops along the way. I really thought it was going to be Bjorn from Dusseldorf who rode a unicycle, but it wasn't. It wasn't a match. But I know, right? It's so good. But so I met him in Paris. He hosted me for a couple days, and it was like instant soul connection kind of thing. And we were only together for a few days, and then we stayed in contact. And I came back here, got a job at Gonzaga, we decided he would come visit. So he had never been to the U.S. before.
Oh, wow.
And so he came to Spokane, Washington.
Lovely.
Lovely. It's so everyone's cute. Top destination.
Whenever people are visiting from like out of the country, I'm like, why?
I know. But it's Spokane's
It is.
beautiful.
It's great. But like from the inside looking out, I'm always like, Spokane?
I know, but it's the same as like you want to go to like little towns and
that's true.
You know what I mean?
I'm like, I get it.
Go Spokane.
Go Spokane. Spokane's a real place. I love Spokane. Like that's why I'm still here.
But also don't move here because prices are going up. Stop making that happen.
I know.
Spokane's actually terrible. Nobody
Spokane's
come.
Garbage. Don't move here. Please
everywhere.
Don't move here. Please don't move here because your California money's ruining everything.
Yeah, it's terrible. Stay away.
People can't buy houses. Anyways, continue.
But yeah, so he came here for a month. We went to we traveled around a little, did like Seattle, Portland, went to California, and then decided okay, we're going to be together. And then we were long distance for 6 months.
Yeah.
Then I moved there unofficially without a visa, worked under the table as a nanny, worked in Germany for the summer, came back, and one of my brothers was studying in Japan, so we got this idea to plan this whole Europe or Asia, Australia trip.
Wow.
And so there's so many of these pieces where it was always how do we stay together? How do we get to the next 3 months together, the next 3 months together, the next 6 months? And so that idea of we were so focused on I think I'll speak for myself. I was so focused on the strategy of it all.
Yeah.
That I think if we were just two people living in a city dating, I don't know how long we would have stayed together. I think things would have maybe ended at a healthier time. And he is such an amazing and beautiful person who like in my past stories, right, he helped me with so many things and took care of me at times where I could not take care of myself.
And he was who you needed for these chapters.
He is exactly who I needed for these chapters. Yes, absolutely. And for so many reasons and in so many ways, and I even think about, so we did this Asia Australia trip. We kind of joked that we were just touring different medical systems because we're in a hospital in every country.
Oh my God.
And he had his stuff that we had to go places for. When we were in Thailand, I got into a motorbike accident. He was on the back. I was on the front.
Oh my goodness.
He normally drove, but I was like, I could drive.
I can drive in Thailand.
Yeah. And of course, I'm wearing a tube top dress that's cut above my knee. So I have road rash all up my leg. We have to go to the hospital. It's a whole thing. I have to go to the hospital multiple days in a row to continue to get my wounds cleaned.
Skin graft.
It was horrible. And he took care of all of that. He got the he figured it all out.
Good job, sir.
Yes. And so he did that. And then the next country we went to was Indonesia. We were in Bali for a while and I got dengue fever.
Fuck, of course you did.
Of course I did.
Because why not? It's a romantic trip.
Right? I get dengue fever days before we're supposed to fly to Australia. So it's this whole thing where, one, it's a whirlwind. We actually ended up going to the airport a day early because we were so just off our rocker and confused. And so he's wheelchairing.
What day is it?
Wheelchairing me into the airport to find out our flight's the next day. I have to go back, get a new hotel room for the night. We get quarantined in the airport the next day. They don't let us fly out until later. It's a whole thing. He basically nurses me back to health. I barely
full of soup.
Yes. Well, the best part was I had just gotten my big flower tattoo.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll show video, but this guy. So I got this in Bali.
Oh, wow.
And I after, this is a 6-hour tattoo and I didn't feel good the whole time. I thought I was having an allergic reaction to alcohol. Because we hadn't drank the whole trip except for the night before. There was this big party.
Right.
And so I was having all these weird reactions to my skin and I didn't feel good, but I'm also getting a tattoo, so that hurts.
Yeah.
And
there was a lot of input.
A lot of things happening. And by the end of it, he's let's go get you some food. And I go to leave and all I remember is him saying, you need a milkshake. And then I woke up in a hospital and had an IV because I had dengue. So
Cool. Casual.
So all these things are happening. He really took care of me in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
We've been all these whirlwinds. And we just always had this way of struggling to communicate. Like, no matter what was happening in our world, part of it was language, like actual language barriers. We always spoke English. I knew very little French when we first were together. And yeah, so it was just always this, like, this struggle to, you know, like find flow sometimes in our communication. And so anyways, like, I just think that played a big role in how long we were together. This like all the travel, all the adventure, all this stuff. And then when we finally got to a place where he moved here, got his visa, which took a very long time, I think there was a part of me that was like, okay, now we're settled. Like now we're going to make enough, like we, you know, we're not going to be struggling with money like we used to. Like there's going to be a level of peace. But then COVID hit. And and like that was the whole thing. And I was in a master's program and working like a million side jobs and student teaching. And he was working construction under the table in Idaho. And so none of that shut down. Like he just kept working like normal. And it was just complicated. Like he's working these super long, hard days. I'm at home. Depression was rampant. Like it was just, you know, and so like that happened. And then we like got our own house. We're like, okay, like, you know, like the clouds parted and COVID's starting, like, you know, quarantine is lightening up and all these things are happening. And I think it just came to the point where we realized that I had my own shit. Like there was so much of PMDD and my depression that he helped me with, but it took me a long time to know how to help myself. And I honor him for that. Like I think he tried to be as patient as he could, knowing that he had his own shit going on that I couldn't always help him with because I was in my states. And so it got to this place, you know, and then on top of that there's life. There's like wants and desires of like careers and study and where do we go and where do we live and what do we do. And I think it just got to a place where his stuff and my stuff was manifesting a third hard chunk of stuff. You know what I mean? And so we got to a point where I wasn't making him better and he wasn't making me better. And I was working, at that point I had started to be working really hard on making myself better, especially because he wasn't giving me the external help and I wasn't able to lean on him in the same way that I had been for years, which makes sense. Like he was trying to, I think, distance himself so that I would stand on my own 2 feet. And it worked. And I think then I tried to come in and help him and support him, but I didn't always know how. And so, yeah, I think we got to a place where it just got hard between us. And, like, we love each other so much. And we always will. And I think I got to a point where I realized, oh, like this whole, like, if you love them, let them go thing, like, finally hit. Where I was like, I can't help you. I wish I could. I'm trying to. And you can't help me, and you're trying to. But the way we're coming into each other's lives isn't supportive. And so I was the one who called it after, like, a lot of just stress, you know, like I had my episodes and I think he was having an episode of his own. And it felt also like I had a lot of guilt, I still do, of like he stayed with me through some really hard times. And I felt like I left him during a hard time of his own. But I also knew that like I was fuel to the fire of his hard time. So it felt weird, you know, it's like all I wanted to do was lean in. But I knew that I just had to walk away. And so I like to think that like in the same way that we came together, we left in an equally dramatic way, where it was like I met him in this magical whirlwind experience. And then we were actually back in France last Christmas with his family, and I left him from France like We were at his parents' house. Things were just not going well. It was right after Christmas. And I have a cousin who lives in London, and we had like one last discussion, and I was like, I'm leaving.
Done.
Yeah, I'm done. And it was like, I'm waiting for Netflix to pick this up because like I booked a flight. His sister gave me a ride to the bus station. So it was just like hard to like, I was like, oh my gosh, they're all here. Like,
Logistically difficult.
But I was like, I'm also saying goodbye to like
them,
my mother-in-law and my father-in-law and my sister-in-law. And like this house, like we lived at their house for a while when we first lived in France. And so it was just like, weird that this was the place where it was ending, you know, and like so beautifully symbolic. And so I got on a flight and went to London, and my cousin at the time, she tried to have like solo holidays for the first time. So she went to Thailand by herself, and she was like, I went to Thailand to spend the holidays by myself during monsoon season.
Oh, no.
So it's like she was like stuck in a hotel, couldn't do anything. She's like, I'm miserable, so I'm going to come home early. So we actually ended up flying to her place on the same day. And I got there like 5 hours before her, which was perfect because I could puddle cry on the floor, be a mess, take a shower. And then she got there. Yeah, order a bunch of Chinese food. Yeah. And then she got there, and so we spent the next couple of days together. I spent New Year's with her, and but I always joke with people, I'm like, if you're ever falling apart and you need a cousin in London to go visit, she's
for real.
Highly recommend. She was great. We just like, it was the holidays, so things, you know, like she was off. We just went on long walks and ate food and we rewatched Schitt's Creek.
Of course.
Obviously.
This is what we do.
Yep. And talked about boys. She was like juggling some different situationships.
Because it's London, darling.
It's London. And I was like going through I was like, oh my God. Like I kept having these moments where I was like, holy fuck. Like
I'm single.
I left.
Yeah.
And that was wild. But the bummer was I couldn't change my flight back to the US. So I hung out in London until my flight, had to go back, meet him at the airport with his parents, and he decided not to come back with me at that point.
Sure.
So I flew by myself, got delayed in Germany. Like every flight was delayed, and I'm just like by the window of every plane crying, and this woman's like, are you okay? And I'm like,
do I look okay?
And it was just like all this beautiful, there was something there from like the very first moment I left, things started to feel like they were in alignment. And it was a part of that like the beginning. I didn't understand it yet, but it was the beginning of that like nourishing pain that started to happen, where I was like, I felt, it took me a while, but I started to realize like he's going to be healthier.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be healthier. And then we get to keep loving each other from afar, whatever that needs to be. But I got on this plane, and this woman next to me was like, are you okay? And I was like, I think she thought I was upset because the plane was delayed. She's like, we're going to leave really soon. I'm like, I hope so.
She thinks you have like a fear of flying or something, and you're freaking out.
And I was like, oh, I'm just having a rough one. She was like, me too. I just left my fiance. And I was
no
like,
way.
Yeah, I was like, what? I was like, I just left my husband. And she was like, what? And so we hugged each other.
Wow.
And she had this beautiful bracelet, and it was a snake bracelet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have been looking at this ring that I really want, but my whole all my in-laws are deathly afraid of snakes. So I was like, I'm not going to buy that. That'd be weird, you know? And so it was just this weird like thing. And she talked about what it meant for her. And it inspired me coming back and buying this ring that I wear all the time. But
isn't this upcoming year 2025 supposed to be the year of the snake?
Is it really?
I think it might be. We'll have to Google it.
Oh
Give it a goog.
Okay.
Because I think it's the year of the snake this coming year, which is wild.
That is so wild.
You shed your skin.
Exactly.
Just in time for the year of the snake.
Renew. So, yeah, that's wild. So I travel back. I get delayed in Germany. I have to like stay in a hotel. The whole thing's a mess because they're like trying to rebook me, and they're like, it says the reservation's for 2, and I'm like, it's just for 1. I'm like at the hotel. They're like, will there be 2 of you? I'm like, no. I'll be eating 2 plates though.
Yeah, I want all the food. Yeah, bring me the food.
I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, and that was the other thing. My flight from London back to Geneva, my phone got stolen.
Cool.
Yeah, just like out of my pocket. I know I had it in my pocket, fell asleep. It was a super early flight.
Mother lover.
Yes, and then woke up, couldn't find it anywhere. The whole like crew helped me search, and
It's like a detox flight, basically.
yes, but then I'm like traveling internationally.
Yeah.
No phone. Like my phone has all my tickets, like everything. So luckily I have my laptop, so I can like get Wi-Fi and I like message people when I need to. But it was just like a mess. And so I'm in this hotel in Germany. It doesn't have an alarm clock, and I'm like I can't set an alarm clock on my computer. Did I have my charger? I can't remember. But for some reason, alarm on my laptop wouldn't work. And so I go down to the front desk and I'm like, can I get a wake up call? And they're like, we don't do that. And I'm like,
you're American.
Tears are like squeezing out of my eyes. And I was like, I'm going to need you to make an exception. I'm going to need you to wake me up. And so it all works out. I get home, but it's just like this whirlwind of all these things. And so the process there, I think, I mean, it's hard to like give advice, right? Because everyone's in their own situation and every scenario is different. But in that moment, when I got home, I was filled with rage. Like,
interesting.
I was so angry. And some things had happened at home before we left. So it was like coming back to this place, you know, like, and I was just like, like very, very angry, punching the couch, like, which, you know, like, I felt like, I was letting it out in appropriate ways, which also, like, it just feels inappropriate to let out that much anger generally, but I knew it was good. And so I had the next couple days to myself in the house to, like, clean, and I had, like, highs of euphoria and then, like, really deep lows of, like, regret, like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, this is a mistake. Like, maybe we just need time, like, all the back and forth pieces. But again, like, I had family and I had friends, and that was hard to let them in. Like, that's not always something I'm working on, is letting people love me when I'm at my worst or having some of my worst moments. But yeah, and being in conversation with him was really difficult in the beginning because he was dealing with his own stuff and his own anger and sadness and confusion and grief, and I was dealing with my own anger and sadness and confusion and grief. And then things started to, like, kind of slow down. We gave each other a lot of space, and then our divorce was finalized in August, and we went out to dinner together, I think end of August or early September, and that felt really good. Yeah, and that was, like, very peaceful, and I think, you know, our house didn't sell because the market stuff. And so luckily things worked out, and I had a friend whose lease was up, and so she rents from us. And so that kind of saved us a little bit.
Sure.
So we do still have to communicate to, you know, manage some of that stuff, but it just feels a lot more like from a place of kindness and love. And I think that was something we had to define, which I said when I left, like, I think we can do this separation out of love, like, in love and peace. And there was a moment where he thought that meant something different. So some actions that I took, he was like, I thought we were doing this way. And we had to sit down, and I had to, like, define, like, love and peace for me in this stage of our relationship means distance. It means that we're only communicating by email. It means, you know, so it's like, it was a good learning opportunity for me to be like, how do you always act with love, even in situations that it might be hard to be acting in love when you're together. So what does it mean to provide love by giving space, or, you know, to act in love by, like, it felt dirty that my emails were so, like, to the point. But I was like, but that's love, because we're struggling with clarity. Like, we're struggling with understanding each other. And so I'm trying to be
I love you enough to be clear. I love you enough to have a boundary.
Yeah.
I love you enough to give you space so that you don't hold on to it in a different way. I love you enough to.
Yeah, right. And I love you enough to give me the space so that my anger and stuff that I'm working with doesn't come at you, because it's not actually for you. But I felt like it was this cleansing and eruption of all of the anger I didn't let myself feel, all the sadness I never let myself feel. Because I felt a lot of sadness, but I don't think I let myself feel the source of it. You know, like I knew our relationship wasn't what it should be. He knew our relationship wasn't what it should be for a very long time.
Sure.
But it is hard when you're in a relationship of like, when do you know that it's done? Right? It's like, did I try hard enough? Did we look at enough different resources and tools? Do we just need time? Is it the season? Is it the moment of our lives? You know, like, hard shit happens, and you're supposed to be with a partner to go through hard stuff. And so recognizing, like, when has it been too much of the non-nourishing hard, the non-nourishing pain? Like, when are we not growing, either as individuals or collectively? And I think that's the really hard part. Like, that's part of what kept me hanging on. I know also for me, like, because he lived in France, like, this person, like, there was never a question of if we loved each other or not, right? It was just like how it was manifesting. And so I really struggled with this idea of leaving. And I was like, what if he goes back to France and I never see him again? Right? Or even the fact, like, he's in Spokane still and I still never see him, you know?
Is he still in Spokane?
Yeah, he is.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's like, it's just, it was hard. It was really hard. And I feel very grateful for all the ways that he cared for me and loved me and continues to care for me and love me by honoring the seasons that we've gone through from beginning through this ending chapter. And yeah, and I think it was good. Like, we had a couple good talks, like at the end, like before dinner, we had a good talk before I left for my trip to Europe. And it was like this hope of, okay, maybe there's something, like, maybe we still get to be in each other's lives in some way, shape, or form, right? And that gave me a lot of hope of, like, I think I would have wished that we could have done it earlier and left in a peaceful way, knowing that, like, oh, this relationship isn't serving us anymore in this way. Let's evolve it into a friendship. And go separate ways in other realms of our life. But just because of the nature of the world and where we came from, that didn't happen. Like, we pushed a little too hard and too long. I think we both knew that. And I don't think I would change any of it. Like, I wouldn't be who I am, where I am, without all of it. Like, I wouldn't know myself as well as I know myself now without all of it. And I'm very, very grateful for it. And yeah, it's one of those things, like, I never imagined I'd be a divorced person.
Sure.
And that was like a little, like, poke on my ego for a little bit.
Sure.
Where I was like, oh, is this like a title that I hold? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that for me? What does that mean for who I am? But I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be this heartbroken over love. You know, like, I'm so grateful that I got to have this love, this very passionate, adventurous, whirlwind love. And that's, like, always part of my story. And I got to, like, to your point of, like, being ready for another partner, like, I wasn't.
Sure.
I was like, okay, I'm single for minimum a year.
Yeah,
like,
forever.
I was like, I'm gonna give myself a year, and that
sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable.
I'm a logical woman.
I know, and I was like, that actually sounds a little short, like, because before I was with my ex, I had been single for like 5 years. Like, I had a serious boyfriend end of high school, beginning of, like, into my sophomore year of college.
Sure.
And then we broke up. He cheated on me.
Lovely.
And then I was just, like, doing my own thing. Like, people would try to set me up on dates. I was terrible.
Can't be bothered.
I was terrible at dating. I would, like, take my dates to, like, my little brother worked at a froyo shop for a little while. I would take my dates there, and my brother would be like, oh my God, stop
Get
doing
out of my
this.
place.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is my brother. I don't want to be here. Yeah, I was terrible at dates. So I was single for like 5 years before I met my ex-husband. And so I was like, all right, next decade. Like, let's do it. And I went to adult skate night.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Stop it.
Yep. And ran into somebody.
Like literally. I was like, literally ran into.
That's what he likes to say. He rolled up on me. Literally. But he's someone I've known since high school.
Wow.
And we went to different high schools, but we got the same scholarship for college. And so he went to Whitworth, I went to Gonzaga. But I used to pick him. End of senior year, we had these meetings for this program, and so I used to pick him up from his house and drive him to these meetings, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, so annoying. And I would always see him around town from time to time. Yeah. And he's like super connected in Spokane. He worked for my dad for a little bit. He's very Spokane.
Like, you can't understand a very Spokane person until you've lived in Spokane.
Right.
Like people outside of Spokane don't understand Spokane.
Yeah. And I think like that's one of the things that is so attractive to me about him is like he's one of those people who is here for the betterment of his community, right? Like he's here for growth. He's here for
loving service
and making life fun. And yeah, so ran into him. He rolled up on me. Literally. And he was like, hey, good to see you. How's? And he like asked about my ex. And I was like, oh, well, I was like, I think he's fine. We're separated. We're getting a divorce. And he was like, oh. And yeah. And so that kind of like, I saw him a couple times that night, and then we kept talking, and we went for pancakes, and it's pretty much just been that ever since. Yeah, but it has been like he had also very recently gotten out of a relationship, and to have this opportunity where I have somebody who is so safe to practice these new habits, because part of my healing from my separation has been taking responsibility for what I owned. Because I think in a breakup, right? A breakup, a separation, divorce, whatever you go through, it's so easy to be like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But it's like
their fault.
This is their fault. They were so bad. But like, no, it takes two to tango.
It really does.
And you know, I want to be careful about saying that because there are people who are sick in themselves.
There are other circumstances on either like extreme end of the spectrum, and we are not referring to those.
Yes, absolutely.
If you need help, get help.
If you need help, please get help.
If you're unsafe, get help.
Yes.
But we are talking about an air quotes normative everyday.
Yeah, we both played an equal role, and going through the process of understanding what my role was in our dynamic as a married couple was really hard to understand. Like, I knew I was always in this habit of saying everything was my fault, but that was almost like a surface level, like, scapegoat thing. Sure. You know, it's like, oh yeah, it's my fault. I suck. Like, I would do this self-hate dialogue, but then
kind of martyr.
Exactly. Yeah. And then to be out of it, to be like, oh, I wasn't good at, one, knowing what I wanted, to be able to communicate what I wanted, to be able to disagree, to be able to, so like practicing building that skill and finding that energy of, do I have a preference for things? And it's like a daily struggle.
Sure.
Daily, like in a new relationship. And I think there's, you know, now it's like Instagram shows you what you already know, but I get all these reels now that's like how hard healthy relationships are. Like, healthy relationships are so much harder than unhealthy relationships, because you get to like sit in the coziness, right? So to your point about like people who are more comfortable in the status quo of their lives, like, you get to sit in the comfiness of your own bad habits and routines over and over and over again.
And not taking responsibility for your side of the street.
Yes.
And not taking responsibility for your lack of development, to know what you want, to be able to stand up for what you want, and to have that healthy dialogue to grow as a couple toward simultaneous or like mutually beneficial goals.
Yeah. And the way that I started looking at it, the reframe that really helped me was like this idea of honest, like being honest and lying. And it was like, if I don't know what I want, and so I say, I don't care, I don't mind. What do you want for dinner? I don't care. Whatever you want. I'm lying. because I probably do care.
I do care. I just didn't want to take a pause.
Yeah. I didn't take the time to think about what I want, because now you're going to be like, I want pizza. I'm like, fucking pizza.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
But that's like a very often like turned into a bit dynamic in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you do reframe it of like, no, that's a lie.
Yeah, that's a lie. And right, the idea of dinner, that's a lighthearted version.
Sure.
But it's also like, what do you want in your intimacy? Like, what do you want in the way your house is set up and the way your daily life runs? What do you want in terms of how you share mental load and capacity of responsibilities across the spectrum of living a life together, right? Like,
where are the little lies?
Yeah, right? Because they make
like
up
half-truths or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And I think I had to start calling them lies because I take pride in being an honest person, and so I needed a rough
a value of yours is honesty.
Yeah, a rough kick in the pants to be like,
sure.
Oh, I'm not a liar.
Liar!
Yeah. Ow! I'm not. Yeah. And so that's like, and I think that was something actually that my ex had mentioned, was that like, you're not honest. And I was like,
ooh.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Ouch, though.
Yeah, very ouch.
And bless him for having the courage to say that to you.
Yes.
Because it is easier to stay comfortable by not confronting your partner in those moments.
Well, and I think that was hard. Is like, he was always very like expressive, and I found it to be exhausting, because it was exhausting to look inside myself and bring that same level of energy. And so I would rather just like listen, agree. And I think that's a role that many partners, like one partner or the other, can play. Submission, yeah. And we see it in men as well as women, or in like in same-sex relationships. It's like to find that balance of like, we get to, right, there's enough space for both of us. We both get to have preferences. We both get to be strong. We both get to, so yeah, that was a really big thing for me, and like something that I get to practice. And I'm so grateful. I kind of had the perfect scenario where it's like, here's this person who I'm with, who I love so much. I already kind of knew him, so I knew that there was safety there.
Sure.
He's so well known in the community that there was safety there. You know, like not a single person was like, watch out for that guy.
Right.
Like everyone's like, oh my God, he's amazing.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of safety there that I didn't have to fully question, that allowed me to be in a relationship sooner than I expected. Because
it's not some stranger you met at a rant, like.
Yeah, it's not a Tinder date,
sure.
But I was like, you know, who knows what's happening. But yeah, I reconnected with him a month and a half after the separation, or 2 months after the separation. And so I was like, I'm not ready for this.
Right. What the fuck?
Absolutely not. But my body was like, yes. Like, my logical brain.
Your body knows, though.
Yeah, right? And I was like, my mind's telling me no. But my body. But yeah, like, I knew I was safe, you know, and that I was safe to like let this be whatever it was going to be. And so that was something interesting too, was just to continue daily to go through this process of challenging everything that I used to know about being in a relationship. Like, I'm trying to go in it fresh, and recognizing too that like where how do I want to say it? Like, where I have a lot of room for growth, and something that I kind of always knew but didn't fully know was that like I'm a slow emotional processor, which might sound weird for somebody who's like, I'm a somatic energy practitioner and I help people, right? But it's like, I am. And whether that comes from my childhood or ancestrally or whatever that comes from, or
where's the root? I don't know.
We don't know. But like, I am a slow emotional processor. And so what happens for me is like, my body knows, like I'll get a sign, but I can't always communicate it. Like, I'm just like, hate it. Yeah. No. Which I also am like realizing I'm starting to get into, oh my gosh, what's it? Human design.
Yeah.
I'm a manifesting generator.
Ooh.
And that's part of it, is it's like your sacral, like I have a sacral response.
Sleep
is
on
my
it.
Main authority. No, I'm like immediate.
Or mine sleep on it.
What are you?
Question mark.
We don't know.
No, Hannah always tells me to sleep on it. And I'm like, nah, I hate sleeping on it. Like, my knee-jerk reaction is like, I really want to act quickly. But, like, I am learning in this season to save space for slow. Like, I have the opposite transformation occurring, or, like, paradigm shift of it's okay for me not to be frantic and urgent.
Yeah.
It's okay because, like, I played a fast-paced sport. Like, my mom is a very precise person. She wants to know right now. She wants, like, she has this urgency about her.
Yeah.
Like, Olympic synchronized swimmer, like, precision is life. And nothing wrong with that. And
doesn't serve everybody.
I'm relearning how to make decisions.
Yeah.
I'm relearning how to sit with energy.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. But anyways.
Yeah. But no, yeah, but right, and I think that's the thing, is like figuring out your own pace is like so important. And so for me, like my partner, he'll ask me something or something will happen and he'll say like, I see a shift. Do you need a minute? And I'm always like, yes.
But how in tune and how nice to have a partner that safely expresses that.
Yes.
And honors that.
Yes. And I'm so used to being in a place of insecurity where it's like, what happened? Tell me, like, are you okay? Am I okay? Are we okay? And it's just like, let me know when you know. You know, and it's like, I'm curious. I want to know, you know.
Very secure.
Very secure.
Because to be secure in himself enough to give you the space, and like it's secure in you as a whole, like the couple as a whole, to give the space is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And so, yeah, that's been just such a huge part of, like, recognizing my habits and my behaviors and my insecurities, and then to be with this whole new human and have that reflected and get to see those in a different way has been such a gift. And I don't think, like I was saying, I wasn't planning to be in a relationship, but I don't think I could have done the healing that I've done in the way that I've done it without being with him specifically.
Sure.
But just, to be in a relationship again and to be like, okay, here's where these
shines a flashlight.
Yeah. Very, very spotlighty, where it's like, this shit doesn't work and it won't work with anyone. And I think that's also a really common thing to feel when you're getting out of a relationship of like, oh, who would love me, right? Like, is it possible for some? Because you're with this person for who knows how long, and it's like, well, if they can't do it,
right,
can anybody love me, you know? And I know that was a thought that I had even before we separated, was it's like, this is the only option I got.
I can't leave because it's all I can do.
Yeah, like if he can't love me, then there's no way anyone else out here is going to take a chance. And so it is just like this, that there is no there, and like leaning in, being ready, and almost eager to be wrong, right? Where it's like, I'm so... What if? Be curious. Like, I'm so grateful for the, like, sometimes there are moments where I'm like, man, I am fighting myself. Like, I don't know why this is so hard, but like the eagerness to find them, like to find the cracks. And what is it? The concept of kintsugi. It's like the Japanese art, like
put it back together.
Yeah, with gold or whatever. And so it's like I'm eager to find the cracks because I know that everything is manageable. Like everything is fixable. Everything is relatable and understandable. And it's like all okay. Like we're all humans. Everybody farts. Everybody.
And even just this testament to your earned resilience through all of your experiences leading into relationship components of adulthood, but primarily in the last decade, so much. And then before then, I'm sure there are so many stories of the strength you had built in your foundation, and to be willing to break apart your foundation is a testament to your trust in yourself that you have cultivated. And it's incredible. It's very inspiring. And I love your language around practicing within a relationship, because whether you're leaving a relationship and practicing in a new one, or you are making the active decision to take responsibility for your side of the street and to practice in your already existing relationship. Like it feels very inspirational for me in particular, and I'm sure it'll resonate with so many women who I hope will listen to this, of just like, we are so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
And there are so many beautiful seeds of wisdom that we can take from each other's stories to whether you're staying in a relationship or not, or whether you're looking for a relationship or not. Like, where can you begin practicing?
Yeah.
Where can you begin taking radical responsibility for your past, present, and future, and looking for the ways that we can find those cracks so that we can lovingly fill them with gold and become something even more beautiful than we were before.
Yeah. And right, that exists in every relationship we have. Our friendships, our families, our partners. Like, it's not just for those romantic relationships, because I think one of the things that gave me the knowing that I was no longer in a serving romantic relationship, and neither was he. We were not relationships, two people, right? Was because I had invested over the last several years of having real relationships, specifically with women. I have developed a few friendships where I realized at one point, like, the way that this person is loving me is the way that I want to be loved, or the way the way that I exist, the way that I am confident in this friendship should also be the same level of confidence, if not more, that I have with the person I'm spending my life with.
Yeah.
And so I think when those things are misaligned, and I also think, like, different relationships serve different purposes.
Sure.
But if you're smaller in one relationship or another, or hurting in one relationship or another, like, use all of your relationships as reflections and mirrors to kind of feel like, yeah, is this one serving me? And do I have a responsibility to flip this? Or am I, or is something imbalanced that I have no control over, and it's maybe time to sunset this relationship to make space for my light to shine a little bit brighter somewhere else. But yeah, I think the expansion of mindset of relationships, there's like a lot of people are starting to talk about that. I think recently, just like all the different ways that we are in ship. And how we put too much pressure, honestly, on our romantic relationships, right? Our partnerships. It's like they might be a lot of things, but they can't be your everything. And you need to have these other places of reflection so that you can continuously question yourself and be curious of your growth, so that you can show up your best in all these different places, and not just put all this pressure on this one person to, like, do all and be all for you. Because I think that's easy to do.
To be infallible in all ways.
Yeah. Because just like I feel like I'm so far from the finish line, so are they.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, why would I expect? I think about that with my new relationship, where it's like, I think as the woman, I'm like I used to be like on guard, like waiting for red flags.
Sure.
But I'm like, what red flags do I have? Right? Like this poor guy's
what are
probably
my little
like,
red Avista flags, like, leading to the gas leak?
Yeah, right? And so it's like, be equal if you can. Find equity wherever it exists. And, like, know that that's your power. Like, you get to be awesome in a relationship. And so do they. So, like, how do you do that together?
That's a good question. Equity of opportunity for growth. Equitable opportunity. I like that. Makes me ponder. I think that's like the perfect stopping point. Yeah. Like, I think we just drop the mics and, like, throw them down. Like, oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And for taking the time and the space, and for opening your heart and having such an embodied conversation around your story.
Thank you.
And I know that there are so many women that are going to connect with it in a very direct way, but also in all of the other ways, like the less direct. And I'm just so thankful that you've said yes, and I'm so proud to know you, and thank you for making this the cool kids table for the day.
It takes two to tango.
Takes two, baby. Oh my gosh. I just don't even know how to express my gratitude in this moment. But thank you.
Thank you. Wheelie chair hug.
Thank you so much for tuning into this powerful episode with Jasmine Kazuko Linane Booey. Her courage to share her story and her ability to hold space for others on their wellness journeys are truly inspiring. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love if you would take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone who might need to hear it. Your support allows us to continue bringing these transformative stories to more women just like you. Make sure to follow Women When Fueled on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you're looking for more insights, resources, or ways to fuel your mind, body, and spirit, you can connect with me on Instagram @It'sLexButler or @WomenWhenFueled. Remember, your journey is uniquely yours, and every step, whether it's navigating challenges or embracing joy, adds to the beautiful story of who you're becoming. Thank you for being a part of this incredible journey and this community that we're cultivating over here. I cannot wait to connect with you again soon. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and let's let joy guide your way this week.